You're watching HubWire Galactic here on the HubNet. Here are tonight's headlines. The UEE are still having problems counteracting illegal methods for criminals to wipe their records. After commenting on the issue, a Prime Advocacy Commissioner was laid off. Leilani Addison has made her first year as Imperator, and we take a look at her promises and accomplishments. And since 5 years back, we've seen more civilian spacecraft unveiled than ever before. Are we headed toward a golden era in aerospace aviation? And what does that mean for you, citizens and civilians of the Empire? I'm OliverZark, and you're watching the first broadcast of HubWire Galactic. We begin tonight's report by taking a look at the state of the Imperial Justice System. Last week, Prime Commissioner Jordan of the Terran Advocacy Branch was laid off after making some loud remarks about the Imperial Justice System to transitionalist Senator Mirango at a charity dinner party in Lear. The comments made by Commissioner Jordan indicate the UEE are well aware of the ineffectivity in the Imperial Justice System. We have made an effort to fully understand Commissioner Jordan's statement and sent out our reporter to investigate. Here's the story.
It was during a charity event in Lyre on Cassel where Advocacy Commissioner Jordan of the Terran Advocacy Branch was heard making negative remarks on the Imperial Justice System. When we caught up with him outside the establishment, Commissioner Jordan went on further and said the amount of digitally forced alterations to Imperial criminal records, together with the amount of prison escapes, earns the Imperial Justice Department the spot as the least effective justice system since the dawn of democracy. During our talk, Commissioner Jordan mostly focused on privately owned correctional facilities.
How something like being a great miner can somehow be connected to your rehabilitation is quite frankly beyond me. If you're involved in organized crime, chances are you'll get some help finding the valuable ore. Or you know someone who can help you. They even sell their info and even their merits to the highest bidder. It's outrageous.
Criminal networks supposedly station dedicated miners inside the facilities and keep the most valuable ore to themselves. Therefore, being imprisoned often and the experience that comes with it is, in that regard, beneficial to your jail time. If you're a simple civilian with no criminal record, you are prone to do more time than repeat offenders. Commissioner Jordan continued,
No, the system is corrupt and is no more than a mining business exploiting the innocent and rewarding the actual offenders for their mining expertise.
It's worth noting, Commissioner Jordan's youngest daughter was recently imprisoned after falling asleep at the controls of her 300i and colliding with a parked cruise ship. But when asked about it, Jordan mockingly said,
I'm actually sad my daughter is not a criminal, because if she was, she could have just walked out with the 50 other daily escapees.
He left the conversation just as we were about to ask him how he felt about how his daughter would have died if this was a few years ago, before the regeneration program started. 2 days later, news broke that the Prime Advocacy Office is appointing a new commissioner. Jordan was laid off for making political statements while in the role of a government official. For HubWire Galactic, I'm Simon Wolf.
After hearing about the decision to terminate Jordan's contract, we reached out to him for a comment, but his office rejected our offer. And who knows, maybe we'll see him in the primary elections in 8 years, advocating for Justice Department reforms. And speaking of the Imperator's seat, Imperator Addison has now held the seat for a year. But what were her promises, and what has she accomplished during this time? Let's head over to our reporter and take a look.
Leilani Addison is the surprise no one believed in, but somehow everyone voted for. Well, not everyone, but her landslide victory over runner-up Universalist Titus Costigan is one for the history archives. One standard Earth year has now passed since her inauguration, so let's summarize and ask ourselves, what has she actually accomplished? Saying that Addison is a new player in the political landscape would be putting it mildly. Just 2 years prior to the primary enrollment, Addison was appointed Dean of Applied Science at Mentor University, and after leaving her academic seat in 2947, she did so with little to no political experience. There's no question Addison's administration has had a rocky start. Even in her first speech as Imperator in Braja on Oea 3, much of her powerful and expressive vocabulary had been calibrated for the Imperator position and replaced by cautious wording and political aspirations, rather than promises. When she addressed her first act promise regarding loosening the restrictions on AI, she talked more about carving a path for the act rather than having it realized. She also cautioned the public to not expect to see any changes in restrictions for several years. Much of Addison's first year has been characterized by great ideas and unfulfilled promises. Not only is her act on loosening AI restrictions years away from concrete form, her ideas on terraforming Horus 2 are also at a standstill. This summer, she brought forward Na Huayong Ti of Oya 2 as her nominee for becoming the UEE ambassador to the Xi'an Empire. But when the decision was put in the hands of the Senate, her somewhat exciting nomination fell flat. Even her desire to increase funding for education and scientific research has been openly criticized by senators, going on record to call her budget astronomical, economically ignorant, and a grave threat to the fiscal future of the empire. Addison's first year has been slow, and her efforts have mostly come to nothing. However, being as politically inexperienced as she is, this is certainly expected, and committing to a huge societal change like the regeneration program was certainly easier for someone not indoctrinated by the slow pace of Senate politics. A fair warning for Addison though. If you manage to loosen AI restrictions, and something like the Great Mars tragedy, or Artemis, or the Horus incident were to happen again, we hope you know the Empire will not see any AI restrictions loosening for centuries. You are taking a leap of faith, but is this the right time? We don't know, but we will know for sure before 2960. For HubWire Galactic, I'm Aria Alette.
It will be exciting to follow the career of Imperator Addison. This is a big step from her academic life at Mentor University, and only time will tell if her feet will grow big enough to fill these shoes. Now, instead of the future, let's focus on the past, and more specifically, the Triennial Ship Index that was recently released. Every 3 years, the Triennial Ship Index looks at recent ship and vehicle polls, as an indicator for in which direction our empire is headed. Here's our reporter to explain more.
Every 3 years, the Triennial Ship Index provides insight into where the Empire is heading in terms of economy, market shares, coming career opportunities, and other variables. The index simply considers how ships have been rated by the public in the IAE Ship Showdown for the last 3 years and draws conclusions based on that data. Ships are divided into categories of civilian, military, and industry. Each category is awarded 1 to 5 points depending on how far the ships with the particular category got in the showdown. And here you can see the yearly statistics for each category, where the red line is for military ships, yellow for industry, and blue for civilian sector vessels. We can see that in 2950 people were more keen on military ships, but the public interest has now turned towards the civilian sector, which in 2951 was quite evident, with the final 4 ships all representing the civilian sector. This could be indicative of how our thinking is affected by having a new peace-oriented imperator, or how people feel about the war effort against the Van Duel, but to know with certainty one would have to conduct further polls and research. We took to the bustling parks of Terra's capital, Prime, to ask people which ship they would have wanted to see win the 2951 ship showdown.
I'd say the RSI Phoenix. I don't think I remember last time it won, if it ever did.
I would have wanted to see the Constellation Phoenix win the showdown, since I'm a tour guide.
It was neat to see things turned on their head like that, but I really prefer the Constellation Aquila. The thing is a lot more useful than the Argo Cargo.
I kinda like the concept of the Drake Herald, to be fair. It's like a flying basement.
The public seemed to agree with the index favoring the civilian sector. What's also worth noting is the total price tag for the final 4 ships, which have seen a yearly decrease, suggesting a trend where pilots are going for affordable options. However, even though the 2951 finalists in total have the cheapest price tag ever, it is largely due to the Argo MPUV cargo winning the showdown. The very affordable MPUV aside, the 2951 Final 4 featured luxury yachts and expensive cargo haulers. The Triennial Ship Index suggests the public is pulling towards peace, but also poverty, with one of the cheapest ships available on the market receiving the most votes. Have too many resources been spent on the war effort? Has the public been taxed too heavily? The answers we get from the Triennial Ship Index this year are formulated as questions rather than answers, and they are pointing their fingers towards UEE decision makers. For HubWire Galactic, I'm Aaron Harper.
Personally, I'm excited to see the civilian sector expand. The Empire has seen much violence lately, so seeing the civilian sector grow is a most welcome change. The Triennial Ship Index will be back in 2955. That's all we had today. I'm OliverZark, and you are wiser than yesterday. Be safe.